Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin on Rugby preview show. Joining me to look ahead to Saturday's matches at the RDS is someone back for still a record-setting 36th Harpin cap. Welcome back to Mr. Neil Keego Keegan.
How are we? Welcome to the coldest room in the world. So I hope you're a lot warmer than I am right now.
It's pretty damn cold, all right. It's been a sudden drop the last few weeks. Well, anyway, listen, before we get to the main match, Keego, we haven't, I don't think we've had John yet over November. So maybe you can give us a quick word about what you thought about how Ireland got on.
Yeah, going in, I was worried. I was worried because we've all been in this situation before, world number ones, and everything is going well. Record to chase, 12th home win. We've been here before. My hair has fallen out with the stress of it before. You've got a strong hairline, fair play to you. But I am actually more positive as we've finished, even though the performance hasn't necessarily improved as we go. Fortunately or unfortunately, I would rather we finished with South Africa, but we started with them, and that was obviously going to be the big test. I think the idea being wanting a similar reaction to now New Zealand don't want to see a green jersey. We wanted the same reaction from South Africa. We knew they wanted to kind of put a few arrows in the momentum that we were going through, and they went for it. They went for it big style, and this was kind of flashbacks to, we've got the blue jerseys on today, flashbacks to the Heineken finals of recent years where the so-called bigger teams were causing us problems, and I was worried for about maybe 8 minutes of that game, and the work the lads put in, the tackles the lads put in. It was absolutely beautiful, and I was ecstatic going out there. And then I thought that opens up the rest of the series. Fiji, we could bring in a couple of things, and Australia, we could bring in a couple of things. And the kind of injuries and everything added up from game one, which is understandable. That's going to happen in a World Cup, which we shouldn't really be talking about. It's a bit like Voldemort. We shouldn't say its name, but things like that are going to happen. So we hit Fiji. It was it was the equivalent of Ireland-Egypt in Italia 90. That's how old I am. It was just not fun to watch, but we got what we wanted out of it. And then Australia, they came to play, and it was impressive what they were trying to do. Now, they had the same amount of discipline as I had on a rugby pitch, which isn't a lot, and that's what cost them. But we actually stood up well. Late change, obviously, with Crowley coming in. And as I put on Twitter, I'm trying to think, I've rarely been as delighted for a player as I was for Ross Byrne at the end of that, because we love the guy, we know what he does, safe as houses, but he's just been shafted a couple of times in the big jersey. He stepped up and brought it home. I thought the series was brilliant for players like Byrne, Crowley. Our favourite, Jimmy O'Brien, stepped up, and it's been absolutely, we haven't peaked too soon, and that narrative started coming out in the news, and it was shut down pretty quick by the experts. They were kind of explaining what was going on, and I do feel it, even though we've said it every time, this does feel different. You hear about how far runs the camp, how it's a family atmosphere, how there's freedom in what they're doing, structured freedom. It's so different, but we are in the same position. So we're all kind of a little bit worried, but I don't think it could have gone better, because if we'd have steamrolled through three teams, we learned nothing. Like, we went in there and went toe-to-toe with South Africa. Our skill beat their beast, and like, that was the big one. I'm delighted. I don't know about yourself.
No, absolutely. No, I think my biggest takeaway, it's not the results, it's the belief that the team seems to have. I think that was epitomized by the try we got against South Africa. The first try, just the way it was a kick, it was 6-all earlier in the second half, kickable penalty. Most teams would have taken the three, but after just a quick discussion, they had a set move ready to go, they worked for this set line out move. They believed in themselves. They kicked to the corner and they executed it, and they got the try. That was just encapsulated in there is a squad that knows they can play. And also, I mean, people are saying, oh, what do we do if Sexton's not there? A lot of these questions that we were asking for the past year, we've been answering them. They're actually being answered in front of us. So some people are still asking them, but now, we've seen Crowley. We haven't seen Frawley yet because he's been lucky with injury. We know Ross Byrne can come in. A lot of these questions and all these different positions. We've got a big squad of players that we know that can come in, and maybe the wins aren't impressive, like you said, but they know how to win. They know how to get the win. So I don't know what more we can want. Okay, doke. Well, we're going to move on. This week's feature Harpin match, as you can see up there, is Leinster v Glasgow. It's in round 8 of the BKT United Rugby Championship, and is taking place at the RDS Arena on Saturday, November 26th, kicking off at 3:15 p.m. It's being shown on RTE2, Viaplay 1. Now that's used to be called Premier Sports, and just to help with confusion, if it says it on your box as Premier Sports and it comes up Viaplay, they're the same channel. They've made that switch. I don't know, it's a bit confusing for people. They are the same channel, Premier Sports, Viaplay. It's also on URC.tv, where you can get access to all matches for $6.99 a month. Leinster named their match day squad at lunchtime on Friday. So why don't we get to harping on it, starting with the back line. And at full back, we've got Jamie Osborne. On the wings, Dave Carney and Rob Russell. The centers are Charlie Natai and Liam Turner. And the halfbacks are Luke McGrath and Ross Byrne.
Love it. As we keep saying, this team, everyone has touched the ball this year. And they've all been in pressure games. I think some played against, was it Connacht? There was a few of them were jumping in. The way that the lads have put the teams together, I'm a broken record at this stage, Jeff. I apologize. But the way they put everything together, everyone on this team sheet has touched the ball. So they're not coming in cold after the internationals. And they know that they have a couple of weeks before the internationals come back, which means, they're taking aim at that jersey. You look at Jamie Osborne, like, he's a big boy. He's ready to rock and roll. Rob Russell, Liam Turner, relatively fresh faces, but again, they've been playing. They're ready to go. Charlie is starting to turn that corner. I think he's, the worry was it took a little bit of time for him to settle in and all that sort of stuff, but it's starting to happen. You can see that happening. Obviously, Dave Carney, what age is he now? 115 years of age, still ready to rock and roll, and there's a leader on the pitch. And then Ross Byrne and Luke McGrath. I think Luke McGrath he doesn't have to do anything. He's class, but he sees what's happening in the big jersey, so he's going to start moving at extra speed now, and you're going to start seeing that class coming through. And he's going to feed Ross Byrne really, really well. So, like, again, it's brilliant. Everyone has touched the ball. There's no one worried about first game of the season. Everyone's good to go.
Absolutely. And just to mention for Liam Turner there as well, his stock is really rising. I'm noticing this season, just with his selections. He was named at the Scarlets match just before the international window at 13. He was named captain last weekend against Chile for Leinster, and he scored a try, but he made an incredible last-ditch saving tackle as well that helped keep them without scoring a try. And now he's in the team when they could have easily put Jamie Osborne at 13 and put someone else at fullback, but they're trusting him there. So keep an eye on him. His stock does seem to be rising going by the selections there. And just speaking of that Chile game, I was gutted that Dave Carney wasn't playing, so I could make my Chile con Carney joke, but I'll try to do it now. And sorry, can't let those go. But it was an opportunity. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No apologies. But listen, it's good to see him back this week anyway. And that is one hell of a backline. And of course, Ross Byrne at number 10 after his heroics last weekend as well. So that's the backline. Right, we're going to move on to the forwards now. And as you can see there, it's Ed Byrne, Ronan Kelleher, Thomas Clarkson in the front row. Second row, Ross Maloney and Joe McCarthy. And the back row, Rhys Ruddock, captain, Scott Penny and Max Deegan.
Yeah, I love it. As I was reading that this morning when you sent it to me, I don't think we appreciate Ed Byrne enough. I think the shift he's doing is, we'll all be sitting around having a pint and we'll be talking about Ed Byrne and the work he's done. Similar to Ben, similar to Ross, similar to all the guys, he is holding down a team. We've got Kelleher coming back, which again is going to put pressure on on the starting hooker and in the big jersey, because he's another class dynamic hooker. Clarkson now I don't know a lot about, but I'm looking forward to it. He's in there with a fully functioning front row. He's not being thrown to the wolves. He's ready to rock. You look at the second row, Ross Maloney, again, I think we underrate him as well. Like he's been an absolute savage. And then the back row, you could insert any of 15 players. Ruddock, again, it's unfortunate that he's a 6 and we have 2 or 3 6s ahead of him, unfortunately, because he's an animal. Scott Penny again. And Max Deegan is starting to come back. He had a bad run with injuries, but Deegan is starting to get the time in all jerseys, and we're all gonna make money off that. It's a savage team, as we say. Everyone has touched the ball, everyone is ready to go, and there's a lot of jerseys to play for. And I think you look at Kelleher, you look at Osborne, you look at Turner, as you say. Going back to Jamie Osborne, I love the fact that we have a big fullback. He's a big unit, which is great. But I think there's a lot of players who are going to take aim at jerseys, and they will not they will not let up. They will force the first team to work to keep the jersey, which is great.
Absolutely. Right, now we're moving on to the Leinster bench, and it's John McKee, Michael Milne, Vak Abdeladze as the forwards, as the front row. Jason Jenkins and Ryan Baird are the remaining forwards, and then the backs are Cormac Foley, Harry Byrne, and Chris Cosgrove.
Yeah, good to see. Like, Harry Burns had a tough time, a lot of pressure on him, but and again, a lot of injuries. So I think with what's happening in the big jersey, I think there's plenty of time for him. He's still a baby, with all due respect to him. There's plenty of time for him to move forward. And I think, if you want him at a 10, you play him at 10. I know he can do a lot. It's a bit like Jimmy O'Brien. It's a bit like Liam Turner. They can play everywhere. But I think if we want him at 10, he plays at 10, which I think is a good way to go. It's a strong bench. They're putting it together so that down the line, if they're called upon, they are ready to rock and roll. And I think it's a great philosophy to have. There's no weak links there. There's a lot of people who have shown a lot of promise and who are ready to rock and roll. So, again, this is the week where we're going to see a lot of those guys get a fairly decent amount of game time because, a lot of guys, a couple of the guys have been in Ireland camp, Deegan, Byrne. So, we don't need them to do the full 80, but we need them to start well. And then we can bring on the guys. So it's a great selection.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we move on to our opposition. Hopefully my graphics department, as always, will put the team lineup down there in the screen, or if you're listening on the pod, it's in the program notes. The Glasgow website announced the team with the headline, Internationals Return for Leinster Visit, but I think that might be a little bit misleading. But what do you make of it?
Look, you put the bunny rabbits up there. It's exactly what it is. Like you've got to find momentum somewhere. You've got to find positivity somewhere, and that's how they're doing it. It's what I mean. It's understandable. It's marketing, but it's also to try and galvanize the guys who are taking the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's I had David Arnott from the Glasgow Warriors fan on during the week talking about them, and he pointed out a few players that would look out for, and he said that winger Cancier is scoring a lot of tries for them. He's doing well. He's an international, and of course, one of my favorite names in all of rugby, Rufus McLean. I mean, that's the kind of name. If you heard it in a movie, you'd say, "Who the hell?" No one would actually be named that, but it's a cool name. I think at their back row, I think their big impact will be in their back row. Vailanu has been doing well. The Tongan, Ireland will see him at the World Cup next year probably, and Jack Dempsey as well. He is one of those internationals coming to the team. I think that's where they'll look to it. But of course, we're strong in the back row as well, so that's where a lot of the battle's going to be. And we can look out as well. They've got Ross Thompson, who's usually their replacement at half. He's back on the bench at 23, so they'll look to bring him on in the later stages. But they've been doing well mostly at home this season. They haven't traveled very well, and like David said in the pods, the last thing they need right now is a visit to Leinster. So they might be more thinking next week where they go to Zebra and looking for that. So we'll see, especially considering how they got on the last time they came to the RDS. Wasn't so hot back in the quarterfinals back in May. But anyway, we'll see how they're lining up on Saturday. Okay, so now we'll move on to the officials, and the referee is Marius van der Westhuizen. And he's from South Africa. And as you can see, the other officials there. And the weather for Saturday afternoon in Dublin is occasional rain and drizzle, 60% chance of rain and gusts of up to 50 kilometers an hour. So it might be a windy day at the RDS. But that's the forecast as of now. But anyway, listen, we'll move on. Speaking of forecast, let's put our heads on the block and start getting into predictions time. What do you make for Leinster Glasgow? Keego?
I did my super brew today. You'll be happy to hear. I picked Leinster by 12.
Very good. The bookies have it 18. I was actually surprised. I thought they might go more, but that's a good target now for Leinster to go for. Obviously, like you say, they can't take anything for granted, but they also have to be confident in. We're talking about Ireland being confident, being ranked number one in the world, having a belief in themselves to play that way. Leinster have to do it as well. They have to go out and dominate from the start and play the way they know they can play and not give them any chances. So I don't know if I'd so much as make a prediction, but I would want to encourage them to beat that and play for the full 80 minutes, which I'm sure they'll do. What just a couple of other matches, just who do you think is going to win? You got England, South Africa.
I think it's a false dawn last week for England. I do think the Boks win. I do think it's going to be an arm wrestle. I think it's down by 5.
Okay. And Munster v Connacht.
I I really want Connacht to win, but I think it's Munster by 3. It's a quick game. It's a close game. I just think that there's a bit more momentum in that red jersey after that South Africa A game. Even though Bristol beat them the following week, I have to throw one dig in. But I think it's Munster. I think it's Munster. 3 points. It's nothing.
Absolutely. Okay, listen, we're going to leave it there. Many thanks to Keego for joining me today. Be sure to enjoy the match wherever you are. And if you want to get involved in the conversation during the match, we're covering it on Mastodon these days. So why don't you join us before heading to our Facebook page for the final thoughts? We'll share all the best comments on our wrap-up pod this Sunday. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.